What kind of man calls it love, then locks her outside his own house? That's what it felt like the day I found Emily. The metal handle seared my skin. Midday, 104 degrees. I knocked once. From inside came her voice, small and muffled. She opened the door, and the heat rolled out like breath from an oven. Her face was flushed, hair stuck to her temples. Behind her, bare walls, a cot, a dead fan, a plastic jug half empty. The place smelled like baked dust and silence that had given up. "Why are you in here?" I asked. She stared at her feet. "They don't allow non-family inside the house." The house 10 steps away sat cool and shaded. I could almost hear the air conditioners humming through the walls. Something in me stopped moving. Not rage. Rage moves. This was stillness, the kind that sharpens. "Pack your things," I said. She hesitated, as if she needed permission to obey. When she stepped into the sunlight, I didn't look back. We weren't coming here again. We drove without words. Her hands kept twisting the edge of her shirt like it might unravel and take her with it. After 30 minutes, she spoke. "They don't think I'm good enough for him." My grip tightened on the wheel. "And he lets them treat you like this?" Her shoulders rose and fell. "He says I overreact. Says it's just until they trust me." I didn't answer, because saying it out loud would make it permanent. They had no intention of ever trusting her. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was policy. The shed, the rules, the way she couldn't step inside her own husband's place without permission, every bit of it was engineered. So I started digging. Quietly, always quietly. I called friends, old wedding guests, and a clerk who owed me a favor. Pieces surfaced, ugly truths wearing polite faces. They'd been married less than 2 years. She was never added to the lease. Her name wasn't on a single bill. That no non-family rule wasn't tradition. It was a gate with a lock they controlled. One night I went back to the shed while they were out. The lock was cheap. Inside, the air sat heavy and used. A thin blanket folded on the cot, like she'd tried to make her life look smaller and neater than it was. One shelf held her clothes stacked so tight it seemed like she was apologizing for existing. I took photos. Every corner, every blister in the paint, every proof that this wasn't neglect. It was erasure. Less than a week later, the records came in. The house had been bought before the wedding, under his parents' names. No prenup existed because no marriage license existed. They staged a ceremony and skipped the paper. She wasn't a wife. She was a tenant without a lease. "So, it was all fake?" she whispered. I nodded. "They made sure you had nothing," I said. Her eyes didn't well up. They emptied out. I didn't touch her shoulder. She didn't need comfort. She needed this to end. The next afternoon I stood at their door again, heat pressing between my shoulder blades. He opened it with that same smug half-smile men wear when they think the world will always protect them. For a split second, I remembered their wedding, how he'd grinned while she blushed, how his mother called her sweet through teeth tight as a locked drawer. I'd stood there clapping, thinking I was watching a beginning. Turns out I was clapping for her cage. He leaned against the frame, lazy confidence dripping off him like sweat. I handed him a thick envelope. Inside were the photos of the shed, copies of county records, and a written account of how they'd kept her outside the law. The smirk cracked, slow and visible, like ice in a glass. "She agreed to." I cut him off. "If I hear her name from you or your family again, this goes to the sheriff, the local paper, and your church board." His jaw locked. His mother hovered behind him, watching like judgment without courage. "You think you can?" "I already did." I turned and walked away. I didn't need to see whatever face came next. 3 months later, Emily has an apartment with her name on the door and the lease. The laugh in her voice is lighter now, but there's steel under it. He hasn't called. His family hasn't either. I keep the photos of that shed, not to remember what they did, but to remember what I took her from. Rescue isn't a storm or a shout. It's cutting every escape they think they have and leaving them to face themselves. I didn't save her with love. I saved her with the truth.